Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Julia Round. I'm the Programme Leader for Bournemouth University's MA English and Literary Media course, and this is designed to be a video presentation acting as a virtual open day to introduce you to the course and the sorts of things we do here at Bournemouth. I'm recording this live, so please do bear with me if there are any stumbles or hiccups or other problems. So the MA English and Literary Media course at Bournemouth University I think grows out of our unique approach to studying English that perhaps stems from our situation as a department within a wider faculty of media and communication. So we're very concerned with studying English and literature within the context of the multimedia world in which people encounter it. We consider literature to be something that crosses different media and platforms, so we're really looking at the stories that are being told in many different formats and via many different avenues, and giving to our students the tools to analyse those from different critical and cultural perspectives. So as well as looking at literary texts themselves, perhaps ranging from traditional novels to perhaps more modern narrative computer games, we're also interested in looking at the industries around those texts, whether publishing or other creative industries, and the associated notions that have affected those texts, so things like censorship or conformity or transgression or innovation. So it's basically an MA for students who are interested in text and narrative and literature in all its forms, across all its platforms, from Instagram poetry to narrative gaming, to comic books, to graphic novels, to traditional prose novels, and so on. We have a very research active teaching team who are all publishing internationally, and I'll talk a bit more about those at the end. And also we are very keen to discuss, to embed skills development in this course in a variety of different ways, as I'll come on to shortly. So it's a taught MA that runs full-time for a year, although it can be extended to part-time and can also take place with a January start rather than an October start. Effectively during the MA you will do 6 taught units that are worth 20 credits each, 3 in each semester if you're full-time, and then you'll end with a dissertation or a major creative project that you'll work on individually across the summer, which is worth 60 credits in itself. So why would you choose this course? Effectively, we have quite a different approach to literature and media. We're interested in questioning how we define literature and what ideological values and issues we mobilise to do so. So rather than just taking you through a traditional literary canon, we're giving you the chance to consider and question how that canon has been created and how it can be contested, and what value judgments have been used and relied on to do that. So as I said, notions of things like censorship and conformity and so on are explored alongside the context in which literature and culture are produced and the varying powers that different companies and industries have at different points. So as well as that, we are interested in enabling our students to build on their undergraduate degree studies, so combining the kind of literary analytical skills and close reading you've developed during your undergraduate studies, and then introducing you to new theoretical and methodological approaches to the study of English. So really we want you to consider literature as something that exists all over the place, not just where we might expect to find it. We're going to deprivilege the idea of the printed text, the big traditional novel, and consider it alongside all those other different types of narrative that we encounter every day in our lives. And as I said on the previous slide, the teaching staff on this course are leading national and international scholars in the fields of modern and contemporary literature. As well as that, we are fortunate to be able to draw on the expertise of creative writing colleagues from different courses working within the same faculty as us. So we're really a course that enables you to combine academic and analytical study with creative and professional practice, so you can develop a wide range of transferable skills, and as I flagged up on the previous slide, as well as a final dissertation, we also offer a creative project option. Some quick words of praise for us before I go any further. Polly Dodson, a Routledge publisher, describes us as a fascinating course, tapping into a lot of current trends and interests. Joe Spackman, who's the CEO of Profile Books, has called our course uniquely valuable and described our graduates as well-armed to challenge the traditional siloed disciplines of publishing. Joe Tipping, the account director of Sector Light Advertising Agency, has described this course as strongly applicable to postgrads who want to start a career in advertising, and says that we give students a sound, robust understanding about markets and audiences and the importance of storytelling in all its forms. And finally, for one of our previous students, Sarah Norman, describing our course as genuinely one of the best years of her life and a brilliant experience. And Sarah has now gone on to continue her studies and to teach. So hopefully the testimonials there have helped convince you that we do have relevance to a lot of the creative industries today. We embed a lot of additional skills training into our course. So for example, as well as academic writing skills, you're certainly going to develop your professional writing skills as well. We offer an unassessed induction essay task, so when you get here you'll be invited to just write an essay on a subject of your choice to get you back into the swing of study. And of course we have critical essay writing across all units. Many units are also assessed using professional presentation skills, so we have mock conference presentations, individual presentations on units like narrating, identities and culture and controversy. We equip you with the skills to go and do audience and market research. For example, on our unit markets and audiences, there used to be an assignment task where you would survey local bookstores. We've offered in the past a marketing masterclass where we've got professionals in for the day to talk to you about different aspects of literature marketing, and that's fed across a couple of units as listed here. We're interested in helping you develop your practical printing and publishing skills with a creative or critical. So in the first semester, our interactive storytelling unit gives you the option of producing a creative assignment, an interactive narrative that you would then publish online, and also on cultures and materialities, a unit that explores the changing format of the book and literature. We've had an activity in the past where you've gone to kind of look at and use an old letterpress. We certainly are interested in developing creative skills for our students, and there are creative assignments on multiple units on this course, as well as your independent research skills. Although this is a taught master's course, we obviously realise that at this level you will be undertaking a significant amount of your own research. So all our units have this independent study embedded within them, and certainly that culminates in the final dissertation or major project. We want to foster group dynamic expertise in our students, so as well as agreeing appropriate platform strategies for your research presentation and working in different formats such as a poster task, which is unassessed on the culture and controversy unit, there is also group presentations and formalised group discussions across all units. We run field trips to relevant industry gatherings and events, including the London Book Fair and Brownsea Open Air Theatre Company. And finally, we are interested in providing you with the opportunity to really shape a career-compatible exit for yourself. So as well as throughout the course you are able to write research essays or do presentations on themes that you've selected yourself, you can certainly, by the time you get onto the final dissertation or major project, be streamlining the sort of research you do to really suit the sort of career you want at the end of this course. So what will you study? Here is basically the breakdown of the units. As you can see, 3 units in semester 1, 3 units in semester 2, and then semester 3, which runs across the summer, is the dissertation and major project. There is the option to do a placement for part-time students or January starters. This isn't assessed, it isn't credit bearing, but if you are interested in getting work experience, then our placements office at Bournemouth University can help you with that, and obviously that's a great opportunity to get some relevant inside knowledge and industry experience. And as you can see, there are different options for enrolling, whether you wish to start in September, October, or start in January, with different timeframes attached, and that can apply to either full-time or part-time study. A brief summary of some of our units then, before I go on to talk about them in a bit more detail. So in semester 1, markets and audiences is one of the units you will study, and this obviously, as the name suggests, looks at the ways in which literary texts are marketed and promoted and the expectations of audiences around them. Cultures and materialities will introduce you to working with contemporary media and kind of give you a timeline and a knowledge of the historical differences in the way that literature has been produced, stored and displayed. Interactive storytelling invites you to investigate and understand storytelling in digital and interactive media. So we have a kind of introduction that's very theoretical and then moving on to a much more practical basis. And this unit you have the option to either do something creative or produce your own interactive or digital narrative, or to write something more critical and theoretical for assessment. In the second semester we move on to units that are perhaps a bit more contextual. So culture and controversy allows you to explore definitions of moral panic, free speech, freedom of expression and censorship by looking at a series of cultural controversies. Things from Lady Chatterley's Lover right up to Gamergate. Mediating the Nation analyses a range of texts in terms of their national identity and relates this to a series of changing historical and political contexts. And finally, Narrating Identities, which is an opportunity to study a number of genres that can loosely be defined as life writing across many media, whether comic book, prose, music and so forth. So to give you a bit more knowledge on each one, markets and audiences, as I kind of touched upon, is a sociological approach to the study of the cultural industries and their audiences. It looks at the ways that texts have been marketed and promoted, and it considers things like the paratext, the covers, the blurbs, all the extra material attached to that, and how these elements shape audiences' expectations and experiences of handling the text. It's obviously a unit that will focus closely on commercial imperatives, considering the idea of the author as a brand in themselves, the way that media and literature is distributed, and also how things like the leisure and tourist industries might engage with these sorts of texts. And finally, it considers different types of audiences, whether fans or casual readers or so on, book clubs, the kind of spaces and places these audiences might exist. It's assessed by 2 shorter critical essays that are both written pieces of work. Cultures and Materialities, that I introduced briefly just now, is a unit that introduces the theories and practice of the way that texts are produced. It situates our production of literature in a more historical way, tracing a development from early ways of producing things to more modern formats, and its unit's tutor is interested in focusing on the idea that texts are not just made up of their words and images, but also exist in a very physical format that constantly changes. So their materiality and the physical object of the text is important. So it will consider items such as typography, cover image and format. It will look at paratextual and peritextual elements. Effectively, we can consider the work as a cultural product with a distinct readership that is targeted in a particular market and cultural location. And it asks a number of questions, as you can see here, about the categories of literary studies and our understanding of literature as a whole. It's assessed by a single research essay that you will work on with support, but around a theme that you find particularly relevant or interesting to yourself. So we're building in that kind of focus on independence early on in the course. And finally, interactive storytelling, a unit that studies the development and nature of the art of storytelling in the context of interactive and subsequent digital media. Some might say that storytelling has always been interactive. There's always been a relationship between the author and the audience has always had to participate. But after giving a kind of history of these sorts of activities, the course then starts to look at the way in which interactivity has become foregrounded in a lot of literary formats, particularly due to digitalisation. And so the course provides a rigorous scholarly framework for your own digital literacy and gives you space to reflect on how that has informed the text you encounter in your lives, as well as to develop your own skills in creating and analysing interactive and digital media. It's assessed by either the creation of a single creative project, an interactive narrative that doesn't have to be digital, can be analogue, or a critical research essay of your choice. So that was semester 1. Moving on to semester 2, Culture and Controversy, as I mentioned, a unit that explores the difficult relationship between concepts of free speech and censorship in society and how that has impacted on different texts at different times. We consider not just text but also the context in which they have appeared and how controversy has sometimes been mobilised, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively, and impacted on different stories and events. So we ask, what makes a publication or event controversial? How could we define controversy? And what's the difference between that and merely just having an argument? So we look at a number of controversies across different media, and students are encouraged to analyse controversial texts beyond this that you may have encountered in your own lives. We cover literature, comics, film, television, computer games, and various genres as well. So the unit has a dual focus. It looks at the texts themselves as well as the debates that have surrounded them and asks things like who are the stakeholders, who are the experts, who is pronounced in these situations. It's assessed by a short critical essay and also an individual presentation on a controversy or a aspect of that notion of your choice. Mediating the Nation is a unit that reflects on what is perhaps a very relevant current issue relating to literature, and it ties literature to the idea of the political state structure. Effectively, it draws on a number of critical theories and recent research practices to explore how the main historical and political changes that have impacted on the UK in the last 25 years relate to changing cultural practices and vice versa. So in this, we ask our students to consider cultural constructions of Britain and Britishness, and focuses in particular on two major historical developments that have impacted on how these Britain and its associated notions have been culturally constructed. So we look closely at the transition away from imperialism and also the development of political devolution. Again, it's assessed by a single research essay, which allows you some space to explore whatever aspect of this notion interests you particularly. And finally, narrating identities in semester 2. And this is concerned with the way in which the literature we read is used to help create our own identities and how those identities might be conveyed and contested in literature itself. So, for example, we might consider LGBTQ+ identities in America and Europe. We might also consider the ways in which identity is perhaps not liberating and empowering, but could be used to disempower or dehumanise others if we consider the mobilisation of ideas of identity politics. So narrating identities really looks at how identity is created and mediated through literature and wider culture at a number of levels, whether individual, whether subcultural or small fan base, or at a wider scale in terms of a national identity. It's going to take in a range of texts across different media, and it's going to ask and examine how identities are represented through literature, filmic and multimedia formats, which in turn raises bigger questions of how we as individuals or groups or nations or wider cultures define a stable sense of identity and self for ourselves. Again, it's assessed by an individual presentation and a short critical essay. And finally, the dissertation on the major project, which you will undertake in the summer if you're a full-time student. So this is really the culmination of what we've done on the course so far, and we're aiming to provide our students with the opportunity to develop and demonstrate your critical, analytical and research skills by undertaking a significant independent piece of academic work. There's no restrictions on choice of topic, so we can encourage you to focus or build on the work you find most inspiring. And effectively, you're required over the 3 months of supervision to produce a 15,000 word dissertation. You obviously remain in close contact with an individual supervisor across the summer, and they will guide you through this process. The other option at this point is to undertake a major creative project. And again, this is for students who perhaps feel that they want to develop the creative skills that they've come to the course with and have hopefully built on while they've been here. This again will total 15,000 words, but instead it's divided into a 10,000 word creative piece or equivalent, together with a 5,000 word critical rationale, in which you reflect upon the choices that you've made. The dissertation and the major project are both aiming to answer a particular research question. So, for example, your project might be interested in exploring the appearance of Gothic in children's literature and what formats it might usefully take, for example. And so the creative piece you would write would be an investigation of that, of seeing what would work and what would be acceptable, supported by research that you would detail in your rationale. So these are both investigative research projects, just taking either a critical or a more practice-based approach. Before I wrap up, just a few words on the team. This slide mostly exists so you can see how to link to all our staff profiles. I'm Julia Round. As I said, I'm the programme leader for this course and also the unit leader for Culture and Controversy and the dissertation and major project. My background's in English literature, and I currently research the intersections of Gothic critical theory and contemporary comic books and also children's literature. So you can see where I pulled my example from for the previous slide. As well as myself teaching on this course, we have Professor Bronwyn Thomas, who is the lead for markets and audiences. Bronwyn's done a great deal of work on audiences in different formats, social reading, as well as dialogue and other literary concepts. Dr. Simon Frost is our leader for cultures and materialities, and Simon's research focuses very much on book history and economics. Dr. Jim Pope is the unit leader for interactive storytelling. Jim is a published creative writer and runs the New Media Writing Prize, which is the first large-scale international award of this kind and hosted here at Bournemouth University. Dr. Hugh Dix is our leader for Mediating the Nation, and his work focuses very much on national identity articulated through literature. Dr. Sam Goodman is leader for Narrating Identities. He has been named one of our AHRC's thinkers, and also is his research focuses very much on concepts of identity through different formats. Dr. Eugene Teo also teaches on culture and controversy, and Eugene's work focuses on issues of memory and identity. And finally, Dr. Rebecca Mills, who lectures on narrating identities, and Rebecca specialises in crime fiction. You can find out more about all of the team on the staff pages, or indeed just Google us. And so finally, just a few words about Bournemouth itself. Set in the south of England, in a beautiful part of the country, we have a thriving university here, as well as very close links to some beautiful surrounding countryside, and also a rich literary history of our own. We have writers such as J.R.R. Tolkien, Robert Louis Stevenson, Enid Blyton, and many others who all have very close links to Bournemouth. So if that's whetted your appetite, feel free to investigate that further online. I hope this has been a helpful presentation. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free to contact me as Programme Leader. My email address is jround@bournemouth.ac.uk, and we hope that this has been a useful presentation that you might consider the MA English and Literary Media at Bournemouth University. Thank you very much.